Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Macon-Bibb County Committee of the Whole meeting. Today is Tuesday, August the 9th, and the time is now 9:04. Thank everyone for being here today. We have several items on the agenda that's very important, and we have a few announcements as well. But we'll begin the meeting with our approval of the minutes. This is the approval of the minutes for the July 12th, 2022 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve? Got a motion by, sounds like Commissioner Wynn, second by Commissioner Bronson. Any questions regarding that item? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. We do have one announcement today. Attorney McNeil.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to introduce to the Commission, we have a new paralegal that's joined our office. This is Mr. Rowdy Solomon. He's born and raised in Macon. He's a former Marine, and he comes to us from the world of private litigation practice. He's going to be assisting Frank Howard with our blight program and all of the other paralegal needs for Frank's practice, and we're just excited to have him with us. So after the meeting, if y'all get a chance, please come say hi. This is Rowdy Solomon. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney McNeil.
He's got the greatest name in the history of paralegals, Rowdy.
Right in the blight program. I like it. Thank you. I've had the pleasure to meet this gentleman. I know he's going to be an asset to our community, and certainly appreciate your service, sir. So we're going to go on. We have several new alcohol beverage licenses requests. There are several denials. I hope you had an opportunity to review the information that we have there. We'll begin with the first item, 3A. This is a new alcohol beverage license for J. Hotelier 3 LLC, DBA Houston Avenue Grocery, located at 4315 Houston Avenue, Macon, Georgia. Legal recommends rejection of this application. I'll ask Mr. Howard to explain the rejection of this applicant.
Good morning. My name is Frank Howard, Assistant County Attorney at Macon-Bibb County. After reviewing this application, there is a requirement that not only the business owner, but also the owner of the real property where the business will be located submit a certificate of good standing in accordance with Macon-Bibb County Code Section 26-51. This application does not include a certificate of good standing from the owner of record of the structure at 4315 Houston Avenue, which is HENA 2007 LLC. Therefore, because that certificate is not with the application, I recommend the Committee of the Whole reject the application.
Thank you. You've heard the recommendation by council. Can we get a motion to follow that recommendation? Ooh, I don't know who said that. Or a second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to the appropriate place. We have item B is a new alcohol beverage for Cannon 77, located at 3726 Jeffersonville Road. Legal recommends denial of this as being a vice mark. Any further explanation of that, Mr. Howard?
No, Mr. Mayor, other than the Code Enforcement Department did confirm that this location was operating as a vice mart.
Thank you, Attorney Howard. Can we get a motion for that denial? Got a motion by Commissioner Lucas, second by Commissioner Wynn. Any discussion regarding this item? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. Item C is a new alcohol beverage license for Titan Mart LLC Food Mart. Legal recommends denial for this based on the similar reason that this is, after a further inspection, believed to be a vice mark. Therefore, we're recommending that this be denied as well. Any questions or any additional information, Mr. Howard, regarding that?
No further information.
Okay. We do have a recommendation. We get a motion to approve? To deny, I'm sorry. Approve the recommendation. Okay. Got a motion. Location of that Titan?
Titan Mart LLC. It is located at 4437 Columbus Road.
Right. Okay. We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Clark to approve the denial. We get a second? Second by Commissioner Jones. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries as well. The next item is a little different. It's a new alcohol beverage license for the ARVI 2018 LLC, doing business as Quick Serve. Legal recommends denial in this case. This comes to us where the There were multiple taxes owed over 90 days. Once we published the agenda, they went down and paid about $14,000, but didn't pay the personal property, which is another $1,500 roughly on that. So for the reason that we passed the ordinance back in May, we're asking for legal to recommend denial in this case as well. It could come back before you if they pay the taxes within a reasonable time, but for right now, we're recommending denial. Can we get a motion to accept that recommendation? Motion by Commissioner Wynn, second by Commissioner Bronson. Is that a second, Mr. Bronson? Okay. Any further discussion regarding this item? This is on Emory Highway. 584 Emory Highway. And when we talk about good standing letters, this is what we're talking about, the affidavit that we did before where they have to sign indicating that they had no additional taxes on any properties that they may own or have an interest in. We took a vote on that, right? Okay. We have a motion and second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Item E is a new alcohol beverage license for Rock and Roll Sushi located at 5791 Zebulon Road, Macon, Georgia. This is a new business. They met all statutory requirements. You can see the picture there on Zebulon Road, and legal recommends approval of this. We had a motion to approve. Motion by Commissioner Wink. We have a second. Second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Will be sent to consent agenda. Item F is a new alcohol beverage license for Bow and Anchor. You'll see a picture of that as well on your screen. All the statutory requirements of our local ordinance have been met and satisfied to our attorneys, and legal recommends approval. Can we get a motion to approve? Motion by Commissioner Jones. We have a second. Second by Commissioner Howell. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Will be sent to consent agenda. Was there a question? Item G is a new alcohol beverage license for King's Food Mart. King's Food Mart located at 2765 Houston Avenue. I believe that one was previously tabled. Is that something that needs to be untabled to consider?
Yes, Mayor.
And Mr. Bronson?
What was the address on that? What was the address on the last on F?
That was 4480 Riverside Drive, Suite 11.
Okay, we're back to item G, and if you'll give us a little information on, we tabled this item several weeks ago, waiting some additional information, I believe. We need to take it off the table if we're going to vote on this today. I know time is kind of getting on this particular one. So anything additional on that, Mr. Howard?
No, Mayor. They satisfy all requirements for a alcohol license. Therefore, my recommendation is approval.
First of all, do we have a motion to remove this from the table? Is there a motion needed for that? No? Okay. This is on the agenda. No motion. We have a motion to approve this King's Food Mart. Okay, it dies for lack of motion. Thank you. We'll move on. Excuse me? No, it doesn't need to since it's on the agenda. It was previously tabled, but it's on the agenda. So we do have a motion. Is that a motion to approve? Okay, got a motion approved by Commissioner Lucas. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Jones. Discussion, Commissioner Wynn.
Why did we deny it to begin with last time?
Never a denial of this license, Commissioner.
We tabled this, if you remember.
We tabled it. We didn't deny it.
Right.
Why did we table it then?
It was tabled, I think, this and several of the Vice Marts along that Houston Avenue corridor happened right around the time. We also had a shooting over there, and we wanted to make sure that they meet the definition to be open as a grocery there, and we sent code enforcement out there.
So it all clears now?
According to code enforcement and the attorneys, they meet all the legal statutory requirements. Commissioner Watkins?
Point of order. Did we take the vote and take it off the table? I thought I heard it died.
We don't have to take a vote on it.
You actually need a vote taken off? Okay. Well.
We tried to do it, but Commissioner Lucas was on the spot over there. Any other questions regarding this item? I will tell you, you'll have some a potential policy that will be sent to you shortly that will address these issues that we talked about. These folks who one day they're Food Mart, the next day they're not. To give you a little bit more authority when we have at least two of those within a short period of time to be able to take some additional steps, and we'll bring that forward hopefully in September. We do have a motion and second on this particular item. All those in favor, Commissioner Howard, you have a question? Yes, sir.
I don't know if it's a question or more of a statement. The picture that we're looking at of this place, is that a current picture? I'm pretty sure that it is, but I'm just asking.
It looks like the address I drove by this weekend. That's correct.
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Yes, that's accurate depicts what
It's
it
an accurate
shows.
picture.
And the gas pumps are working.
I guess just as a personal statement of mine, we have a lot of blight. We have a lot of negative stuff going on in this particular neighborhood. And looking at this building, it looks like they're not very concerned with the appearance of their building. They're just interested in making money. So for that reason alone, I'm going to vote no on this.
Okay. Duly noted. We have a motion and second. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Those opposed, nay. We'll take a roll call vote, starting with Commissioner Wynn. Commissioner Wynn, how do you vote? Commissioner Bronson, how do you vote? Commissioner Lucas, how do you vote? Commissioner Jones, how do you vote? Mayor Pro Tem Clark? Commissioner Wilder? Excuse me? No, I'm sorry. Commissioner Howell? Commissioner Watkins? Okay. Motion fails. We'll move on to the next item. Thank you very much. Commissioner Lucas, go ahead.
Are we gonna inform them that this is the reason?
They'll have a right to appeal once they get the letter from our attorney.
And in the past, we've tabled some stuff and we've put certain requirements in place. Like if the place was dirty, we had a list of different things that we wanted them to do in order for us to approve it. So I was thinking maybe that would be the route to go rather than, but I guess that this motion, this vote achieves the same thing because they'll know what they need to do. But we're not sure that that's the way the building looks, are we?
We're sure. I went by there myself this weekend.
Okay. Well, I don't have a problem with that because one time we tabled one over on Emory Highway because I knew that they had trash all over the yard all the time and it would, blow into the street. And so we held it until they put in place a plan for making sure that it was clean on a continuous basis, not just that one time. So I think we ought to do it that way rather than just turning it down. We need to hold it maybe and then say, this is what you need to do, and then we'll consider it again.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Anyway, that was what I was saying.
If I may, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
my duties as assistant county attorney is to notify the business owner the reasons for a denial or a conditional acceptance. And so I asked that the commission provide me with what guidance to give the business owner on what needs to be done for a conditional acceptance or the reasons for a denial if the commission chooses to deny this license.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Yeah. You want that now? That's something you need right now?
That is.
Typically they'll take the information that they've discussed up here on the reasons that they want to deny it and formulate that into a denial to send to them. And I think you've heard Commissioner Howell and others' comments about this particular area, about this mart, and about the appearance and the blighted condition that they believe that it's in. Whether or not it's not legally sufficient, that's for another day. But I think that's enough basis for a denial right now.
Absolutely. So I will inform the owner as such.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Clark, you have a follow-up? Commissioner Clark.
I think I agree with Commissioner Lucas and Commissioner Howell on this, but I think the proper order would be a motion to reconsider. And then in that discussion, we table it so we can give the direction to Frank to move forward. Is that helpful to everyone? That seems to be the, that way we don't deny it with any sort of we give time to make the denial. Give time to Frank to I think it just needs to be tabled.
were you going to say something?
No further statements from legal at this time.
The proper procedure would be a motion for reconsideration of the denial. If that's approved or if that passes, then the vote as before the denial will come back before, and then you can make a motion to table the application, and that will be the so there's two votes. If you want to get to a tabling, that's how you would do it. If you want to.
I think Attorney McNeil.
I'm sorry, Duke. Under our code, an adverse vote on an alcohol license acts as a procedural table. So the matter's tabled now, and we'll just send a letter.
Yeah.
Does the denial, and I appreciate that clarification, but so the denial is a table, or do you have to articulate a reason to the?
No, sir. The in our alcohol code, it specifically says that an adverse vote preempts the procedural rules for the commission and tables the matter.
Fair enough. Yeah, then that's fine.
Yeah, which is why we don't send it to the consent agenda. They do their letter. We have an appeal process, and if they file an appeal, it sets up the procedure that we have. If they don't file an appeal, then we bring it back up for a final vote. Commissioner Jones, did you have something to answer?
Yes, sir. I agree with Commissioner Lucas's comments. Write that down. And I agree with Commissioner Clark's comments. And even though it may technically be in the code, it doesn't come across as we've got to treat everybody the same under the law. So I don't like the way it looks either. So I certainly respect Commissioner Howell's comments. But if they meet all the requirements, my criteria is always I'm going to vote yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. I think Commissioner Howell was making that his personal observation and the reason for his vote. Everybody's entitled to their own opinions and votes. And
I understand that's not a criticism.
I'm not talking about
a criticism or a challenge. I'm just saying I think it would sound better if we officially reconsidered it and tabled it, and they knew why, because that's the first thing they're going to ask Attorney McNeil. Why did they deny my license? We met all the requirements.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. That information will be sent back to them. They'll understand why, and they can file an appeal if they need to at this point. Commissioner Howell, would you have a follow-up?
I guess with the discussion, I certainly wouldn't mind is adding that to a requirement if necessary by ordinance, because this is not quite in my new district, but it's just across the street, I believe, from the line of my district. And to me, it's appalling to open up a business, and this is my personal opinion, but I don't want there to be any misunderstanding that this ain't my opinion, and that I don't mind saying so. If you're going to open up a business, I don't care if it's on Houston Avenue or Zebulon Road, it needs to look like a business. It don't need part of the paneling on the on and outside missing. It don't need to have a roof that's 40 years old that's been patched. If you want to look at the pictures, look at them. It needs decent paint on it. And I'm going to be a stickler about this from now on. If you're going to be in business, be in business. And I can't speak for the rest of this commission, but that's my opinion, and that's why I voted no, and that's why I'll continue to vote no on issues like this.
Thank you, Commissioner Howell. Commissioner Bronson?
Yeah. I'm high five from way across the way. All right, so we share similar thoughts here, right? So is there any way for us to put in the code in regards to that up under beautification and protection or beautification and safety?
We'll talk about that. There's several steps that need to happen in order to change that ordinance and make sure that we're consistent with how we give business licenses across the board. And in order to not get into a longer conversation and not undo anything you're trying to do today on this particular issue, I think that's a broader conversation. But to answer your question, in general, yes, sir, there are things that we can do to tighten that up, but we have to be consistent across the board for all similar situated businesses. Otherwise, we'll get in more trouble.
Okay.
So
sounds good.
Commissioner Wynn, do you have a follow-up?
Just as I agree with a lot of the comments here, starting with Commissioner Howell all the way over to Commissioner Lucas. I think we and I hear the attorney struggling with what basis will we deny on. They'll come back. I mean, they'll appeal, and then we'll have to, take care of it there. But we do need to do something about the code if this is what we're going to use to deny something for.
Yes, I don't think it's just this, but there's.
Well, and I agree. This looks like a blighted property they're running out of, basically.
Okay, I think they have enough to formulate a letter out to them. We'll see whether or not it comes back to us for an appeal. We do have a motion and second. There's no further questions. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. I'm sorry. All right, we're good. We're going to move on to item 4A. We're through with alcohol beverage licenses, and good rate today. Item 4A is a resolution ratifying the signing of an independent contractor agreement with Whiteway Developing Corporation, DBA Appleton Brothers Company, in the amount of $106,000 for emergency repair services. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Can I second by Mayor Pro Tem Clark? Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries, will be sent to consent agenda. Item B is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a professional services agreement with Rum Creek Enterprises, LLC, in an annual amount of $125,000 for SPOS management services to be paid from SPOS proceeds 2018 fund. This is the renewal of the contract for Mr. Clay Murphy, who handles all of our SPOS contract, consistent with previous contracts that we've entered into with him. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Wynn. Any questions regarding that item? Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Be sent to consent agenda. Item C is an ordinance to authorize a supplemental appropriation from the general fund balance to the solid waste repairs and maintenance landfill gas tanks and wells line item in an amount of $175,000 for required monitoring and gas well maintenance and repairs at the landfill, and to approve the 2023 task release code for Triple Point Engineering to provide services for the Walker Road landfill in the amount of $175,000 during fiscal year 2023. I know that's a lot to be said. All the information has been attached to there, and as you recall, we've done several of these task releases, and this is just another way to keep it open and transparent out here in front of you guys to vote on. So having said all that, I'd like to make a motion to approve. Can we get a second? Second by Commissioner Jones. Any questions? Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
Yeah, I'd just like to hear a brief update on the environmental monitoring. I'm sure that has something to do with this.
And the reason why we're doing this is because I tried everything possible to include all activity at the landfill into closure, because this is not closure, it is the monitoring of the methane wells. We had to go back, we did not include this in this year's budget, and so in order for me to keep this task going, we had to go in and do a supplemental, put it back in the budget. So this is exactly what it's for. Even when we do close, we're going to have to continue to monitor that methane gas, and so this is part of it.
Thank you very much. We do have a motion and seconds. Further questions, Commissioner Lucas?
Yes, I know that we're selling that methane. Is the brick company
Yes.
still purchasing? Does the purchase price cover our cost of extraction and this what is it, gas well maintenance and all of that?
It comes and goes, Commissioner, depending on the quality and the frequency it's able to be extracted. But the other thing is, if you don't have a export out to someone like Cherokee Brick, who we presently do with, then you have to buy another system that's treated in a different way. That's several $1 million.
Okay, so they've got okay.
Yeah, it's a small, very
I know
small percentage.
they've been getting that gas for a long, long time, and I see they're the ones who now have that built in.
Right.
That they're the ones who.
It's a very small percentage, but it is certainly reasonable for them, and it's next door to their property, so it makes sense. But I appreciate that question. Commissioner Watkins?
I was just wondering, could we get like a 5 or 10 year financial breakdown on what's happened with the methane gas? I mean, sent to us in the future.
Yeah, I think if you include that in your county manager's report, it's just simple math on there. Certainly, if you build more wells out there, they can get a better product and get more gas, but then it becomes cost prohibitive for the county to do so. But I
include some type of cost benefit of more wells. Might be a little bit extra work, but
yeah, I mean, we can. They certainly can show it to you, but I was shocked and amazed on how much it costs to do one of those things and to pipe it over there. But certainly, I think we can include that. Mayor Pro Tem Clark, you have follow-up?
Yeah, just a little bit more pointed. This keeps us. This allocation will keep us in compliance with EPA and EPD monitoring requirements, right? Correct. Okay.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. If there's no further questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Will be sent to consent agenda. Item D is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a lease agreement with ABC Supply Company, Inc. for the lease of parking lot space for the former Air National Guard property for storage at the Middle Georgia Regional Airport. That's my motion. Can I get a second? Second by Commissioner Wilder. Got a motion second by Commissioner Wilder. Any questions regarding this item? I heard some talk over there. Hearing no questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Item 5 is organizational chart changes. Item 5A is an ordinance to amend the Macon-Bibb County organizational chart to add a new position, airport director, to the office of the county manager to authorize supplemental appropriation from the general fund balance to the county manager's budget, salaries component, and the total amount of up to, that's important language, $200,000 for the payment of wages, taxes, benefits, and related expenses for the airport director. One reason it's up to is because generally when we add these items to the budget, we have to put an up to amount because we're not sure what the taxes, the benefits, the packages, all that. So we use it basically on a percentage. This salary pays substantially less than $100,000, but when you gross it up, as we do all positions, we have to have that total amount. Commissioner Lucas, you have a question on this?
Yes, so this is a new position. I've been waiting for this for a long time because I've had a question, a concern about the contract that we've had. Not that the folks who have the contract to run the airport haven't done a good job. As far as I know, they have. But the county, it seems to me, has always needed to have a director in that position because it seemed like we were just turning our airport over. And I have a similar kind of thing with the Centroplex and Auditorium, and maybe there needs to be some discussion of that because I was at a program with the mayor on Sunday, and I think it was Sunday. It was a marathon program. But I had a similar question about how we ended up with that big old ugly blue sign on the side of the auditorium. And it's apparently in the contract that we hastily voted on. And I think things like that, we always need to have that connection. And so I favor this, and I'm glad to see it. I wish I had known earlier, and I could have added my name in support.
Well, you can be a co-sponsor. You can be a co-sponsor of it.
Do that.
So we'll add Commissioner Lucas as a co-sponsor. One of the things we know is that one of our largest economic development areas is going to be the airport. As many of you recall, when we went out to see Dean Baldwin, as well as the last edition that we had out there, and as well as the downtown airport, there's a lot that's going to be happening with the extension of the runway and other businesses, hangars, runway improvements that are coming on the horizon. And we felt like that Macon-Bibb County used to have a director at the airport, and they are doing a good job there, but the contract with TBI is approaching the end of that contract, and there's some modifications that are probably needed. We'll speak about that in the upcoming weeks as it fits into the entire plan, but we're very excited about what's happening at the airport, and that's why we want a little bit more close relationship and control with the director to make sure that we play an integral part in that. So I appreciate that. Commissioner Watkins, do you have a follow-up, sir?
And I guess you might have alluded to it, like who runs the airport now and what's happening with that relationship? Is this a replacement or
TBI's contract is coming up for renewal, and we'll be in discussion about some modifications of that project to make sure that it's pretty much going to be a wash on the money part, but the control will be more in favor of the county. So maybe some parts of that contract that we need to keep going out there, especially with the runway extension, but the airport manager is not likely to be one of those.
So, okay, more to come.
Yes, sir.
I guess is the.
Yeah, this is just the first
so
step.
I guess more to come. I would anticipate that would be more. How much staff does it actually take to run an airport in house versus? It's not one person operating it now, I don't assume.
No, TBI has several employees out there along with the current director. So when we renegotiate that TBI contract, we'll reduce the number of folks they have on their side, and quite honestly, we'll move on to the airport director being our employee on this side, and that's why this amount there. I don't want to get too deep into it because we are in negotiations on the contract, but just in the general scheme of things, all this will come back before you. This position will be part of our organizational chart. It'll be posted at appropriate time. and then we'll bring a recommendation back to you at the appropriate time. Same thing with the TBI contract. If and when we renew it, that particular contract will come back before commission. Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Wynn?
Just a point of information for me. When Rex Elder was over the airport, was he the airport director?
He was.
So we didn't have that. We don't have that position in our.
I think after he left, there may have had one more, but after that, in the consolidation, we used the company.
We took that position out of the organizational chart.
That's correct.
Okay, so we're just adding it back in.
That's correct.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you. We do have a motion and second, I believe.
We do not.
Okay. If not, I will make a motion. Can I get a second? Commissioner Howell would like to make a second. We have a motion and second. There's no further discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Item B is an ordinance to amend the Macon-Bibb County organizational chart to add a new position, benefits specialist, to the Human Resources Department to authorize a supplemental appropriation from the general fund balance in the HR department budget. Salaries component in the total amount of up to $85,000 for the payment of wages, taxes, benefits, and related expenses for the benefits specialist. I ask somebody from the county to step up, give a little bit more information about that, the need for it.
Yes. Again, good morning, commissioners. This was something we should have took care of in the budget last month in adding a new position. About 4 years ago, we had a benefits committee where we selected our consultant to help us with our benefits. We are slow. Well, we have made a lot of progress in that and slowly working to bring some of those functions more in-house. In order to do that, we need one more position to handle this. We have open enrollment coming up at the end of end of September, first week of October. So this will bring this person on board to get up to speed with our open enrollment process. And throughout the year, as we work with our vendors that provide benefits to our employees, HR is the first point of contact, and then this person will work with the employee as a liaison with that vendor to handle whatever benefits issues that may come up.
Okay. Any questions? I'd entertain a motion for approval. Motion by Commissioner Lucas. Can we get a second? Second by Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Opposed, nay. That motion carries and will be sent to consent agenda. Our last item on the agenda today is the renaming portion of Anthony Road. Asked our attorney to come up, but I want to remind everyone that we had a hearing a couple of weeks ago. At that hearing, there's no one showed up contesting this particular project. I do want to point out, and hopefully we can get some clarification from the attorney, is this is not simply putting a sign up and changing the name of that area in honor and memory of. It's actually changing the physical addresses and the names for those in that area, which is what was requested by the group. And I think the other thing is our current ordinance requires certain percentages to be done, but gives us the authority to waive some of those requirements. So I believe this particular renaming would require the commission to waive those requirements in order to get it passed, but we certainly within our rights to do so. So I hope I've explained that somewhat, but I'll have our attorney to clear up any misunderstandings after that.
That about takes care of it, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, commissioners. So this is a renaming petition. We have two options in order to honor someone. You can do a renaming, which will rename that facility or roadway, and that requires certain notice provisions and notice to the surrounding property owners, versus a dedication, which is generally an ordinance that appropriates money for signage. The petitioner, I believe we have Mr. Turner, our petitioner here, who brought it to Commissioner Watkins, wanted to do a renaming for Mr. Robert Lewis Scott, who is the band director at Ballard Hudson High School. So Mr. Turner did the petition. However, he was unable to get in contact with some of the property owners. Certain property owners live out of state, as far as Ventura, California. Some of the properties, I believe 2 are on our blight list, and 27% of the properties are unimproved. So just going to the property, you wouldn't be able to necessarily get a signature. So the policy passed by Resolution 14-0031 generally requires 65% of the adjoining property owners to consent. However, that resolution and policy does allow for the commission to make exceptions for certain circumstances that warrant such.
Thank you. Commissioner Jones?
A couple of questions for the council, please. How was notice given?
Was given, we ran an ad for our public hearing in the Telegraph on 2 occasions, July 6th and July 13th, ahead of the July 19th public hearing, and letters were sent to all adjoining property owners, including those who do not necessarily have Anthony Road addresses, but their property does touch the portion of that roadway petitioned for, on June 29th, 2022.
And did we get any responses from said letters?
I received no responses from said letters. I did receive one letter back. That property owner had passed away and was no longer at the address. However, I had no indication on the public record of the status of the
and
property.
What's the total number of residents who actually reside, that's their primary residence on that street?
I do not have that information, sir. I apologize.
And the petition, what was the percentage that was? If 65% was achieved or was not achieved?
That was our required. It was not achieved. I believe Mr. Turner was able to reach about 27 to 30% of the property owners.
You know, my concern is nothing. I don't know Mr. Robert Lewis, but
Scott. Yeah.
Robert Lewis Scott. But there's always the concern that you're actually changing the physical address, the mailing address, and as far as people receiving mail, receiving phone calls or whatever. So that's always my concern, because in the past, concentrated on putting a sign that honored that person, not actually changing that physical street address. So that's still my concern with this.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Wynn?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a similar concern as Commissioner Jones. You know, if we start naming segments or sections of a road, it's precedent. If we do it once, then the next one will come along and say, you did it already for them. Why can't you do it for us? We've already got enough roads that have multiple names. I can think of one right offhand. Hardeman, George Avenue come into Vineville, and then it turns into Forsyth Road, and out further it's Highway 41. Then you've got Pinona and Pierce. They separate at Pinona or Vineville or whatever you want to call it. We've just got too many. I think it may set a precedent that someone comes along and wants a section of their road to be renamed, then they'll look at this if we vote for it and say, well, you've done it for one, why don't you do it for me? I would much prefer one of those memorial signs, like I think it's Dwayne Allman Boulevard or something like that, memorial sign that memorializes Robert Lewis Scott in that area, and it would be less disruptive to the neighbors and the houses and the people that do live there. That's just my feeling about that. I think if we start one, we're going to have others that want to start renaming sections of a road. Nothing against Mr. Robert Lewis Scott, whom, again, I don't know either, but he sounded like a fine, fine person. I think it would memorialize him better to put that big sign up, by the way, that shows better on those roads when you ride down them. If you go across the bridge going up Hardeman or whichever one that is, George Avenue, you see the Dwayne Allman sign. That shows better than the street sign to me. I think it would be a better way to memorialize them.
Commissioner Howell?
I guess I have a little different take on this. Have we done any research to find out why the road was Anthony Road to start with?
Yes, sir. A review of public record. We did not have anything relating to it in the county archives. However, we spoke to to one of the library branches in the genealogy department there, and they let us know that Anthony Road was originally named for E.R. Anthony, a local vineyard owner along that roadway, who passed away in 1899.
Did he donate that section? Did he donate the road to the city back in 100 years ago?
He did. His I have an executor deed. It's a very large piece of paper. I don't have it down here with me, and it's not in your packets. Upon his death, certain portions of his property were willed to the county, comprising the area of Anthony Road.
Okay, so that kind of confirms what I thought. And I guess my big concern is that to me it looks like we're on a slippery slope. And not that this commission would do it, but 100 years down the road, as we're talking about, this was 100 years ago, you know, what happens to roads, something just off the top of my head, Tom Hill Senior Boulevard, I know that road was named that because that family donated that portion of land for it. And even, you know, fire stations, community centers, anything that has somebody's name on it now down the road, say, well, I don't remember who that was, so let's change the name. When we talk about Mr. Scott, you know, there are several people that I can think of that would be a big honor. I think about Mr. Mills, who was, I know he worked at the post office, and he was also a band leader over there for Johnny Mills. I mean, forever he was over there. And, you know, I really like the idea of what we do and just putting up the name a certain portion of road like we did for the Marine out on Sardis Church Road. I think that that's appropriate. But if we look at this from not only my argument about it, but now we're talking about bending the rules because we can't get in touch with a certain amount of folks. You know, are we going to set a precedent there, and then we start changing names? You know, we might as well rewrite the ordinance if we're going to bend the rules. I think if this is out there and we dedicate a certain amount of the road with a sign like we did so many times across this community, I like that idea. I've just got a real problem if somebody donated the property. I think from now on we should respect the fact that that's why the name is there now.
Thank you, Commissioner Howell. Commissioner Lucas?
I want to commend Mr. Turner and the group that worked so hard on this. It's no easy task to go and find all of the property owners on a street, and you were just doing a section of it, and you see how difficult that was. I want to also commend Commissioner Watkins for bringing this forward. We have found over the years that the easiest route to paying recognition to someone is to designate a portion of the street in honor of that person. And the ceremonies, I've witnessed a number of them over the years, especially ministers, recognition of ministers. We've been able to do those, and the ceremony that's held is just grand. The membership is just really, really happy. They have a full program, and then the actual uncovering of the signs and everything. Our sign department creates the signs, and then the group, whoever has requested it, has the opportunity to center that program around a larger program in honor of that person. Mr. Robert Scott was a member of the church that I've been a member of for 40 years in Stewart Chapel, AME Church. Mr. Scott is well known by a whole lot of people as a wonderful band director, and he inspired so many people over the years. And so I think it's just very appropriate to recognize him. But I would support us taking the route of designating that portion that you've identified in honor of Mr. Scott, of erecting those two large signs that will forever be seen by everybody coming through there, and they'll see it as a tribute to Mr. Scott. Because I think the other way we end up possibly with some problems down the line, especially since y'all have not been able to get more approval, more buy-in from the property owners, and I think that will be forever be a problem. So I would support the designation, and then you can be about doing your special tribute program and the unveiling and all of that. So that's where I stand on that. But thank you for undertaking that, because it's about time on Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. We still need to decide what we're going to do on the motion itself. Commissioner Watkins?
Thank you. So, I think the Ballard Hudson Alumni Association was aware of the easiest route to take, which is the memorial sign, and they have chosen, and I support them in their choice, I think what is considered the most enriching for the community, which is to rename the street. That's what they asked me to push, so that's what I'm pushing at this point. And I think it's a very valid concern. The deeper I've gotten into studying about Mr. Scott, studying about Anthony Road, I think it's valid. What is so bad and so hard about a community of people who travel the road every day, who attended that school, who are alumni of that school, who are still actively involved since the 60s? This is a deep-bedded community, people who live off Monroe Street, Lincoln Street, Adams Avenue, that are still involved in the community, that when they see that school, they remember the times that they enjoyed with the band and Mr. Scott and Mr. Martin, and rather than drive down Anthony Road, which at its height, Anthony Road went from Napier to downtown, because the plantation of Mr. E.R. Anthony, yes, a plantation that dealt in wine and vineyards and grapes, was along that stretch, and he owned it. Since that time, we've changed. Jeff Davis runs along a portion, Burton, Key, Anthony Road. The former has many names now, because when folks have discovered what it is, it's a name, and it is a street that has a lot of important features on it: Henderson Stadium, churches, and different things that were worth renaming at various points throughout the time. Mr. Scott's history, and I'll yield in a moment to give that history lesson, is very rich for not only the black community in that school, but also the world of music. Is a person that we are not highlighting currently, and I agree, if defaulting to a memorial sign is what we end up doing, then I guess so, but this is a person who does deserve to be highlighted, and the school in front of him is a valid place for them to do it. And there's something to be said for the relative. I understand the 1800s history and that the importance of Mr. Anthony and that set of folks who were naming streets at that time, but the relative importance to the folks who live in that community now, reside and enjoy, eat, and play every day on that community, is a different set of people, and it resides around that Ballard Hudson history, that the history of Mr. Martin, the history of education being important, and that's what they're requesting. They're organized in a way that they know their history, and they want to see it honored in places where they live and what's relevant to them, not a name that they don't know and have no regard for. So I consider it valid, and I think it should be honored by our body, being that they've, and again, I think it's important when we're talking about the numbers of folks and meeting the 65% threshold, that if you qualify for folks who actually live there, who are contactable and present and engaged in their property, the number is much higher than 20%. Again, almost quarter of these properties are uninhabited, unimproved at all land. Multiple of them, maybe it was just two, a couple of them are on our blight list, people that we can't even contact, that owe us tax money, that are considered, I think as the mayor's put it, not in good standing. So to honor folks who are blighted, exempt, and not in good standing with us is having a valid voice. And even when we send them a letter about this, they made no response. On our body here, when you don't respond, an abstention is a yes. I yield.
Thank you, Commissioner Watkins. Commissioner Jones, do you have a follow-up, sir?
Yes, sir. And I appreciate all the comments, and I think we should honor Mr. Scott. He sounds like he was a fine gentleman and had a great impact on this community. But I do agree with Commissioner Wynn in that a separate sign on the side is much more, I think of Dwayne Allman Way as I'm going south on Vineville. I don't ever look up at the street sign and say, yeah, that's Pinona and that's Pierce and this is Vineville. I don't look up and read those. They don't stand out to me because I pass them going to and fro every day. Whereas I think a separate memorial sign would stand out much more so, and I think it would honor Mr. Scott in a better way. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Watkins.
I would like to yield to Mr. Turner just to give a brief, better summation of Mr. Turner's, of Mr. Scott than I could at this moment, if y'all don't mind. And I think I've heard several members mention that they're not really aware who he is, so I think it would do us all a good honor if we just take a moment, if y'all don't mind.
Thank you. Mr. Turner. Thank you for being here again, sir, and I appreciate your advocacy on this issue and anything you want to say right now at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners. Robert L. Scott, Jr. Like Sam and Dave, James Brown, different musicians would come to Macon looking for musicians. And they'd come right here on Cotton Avenue to where Mr. Scott had his office. Mr. Scott has sent many people, musicians, some of the greatest, even our own Newton Collier worked for Mr. Scott in the band. And those guys were taught how to write music, how to read music. I even served in Bella Hudson's band. I wasn't the greatest. I didn't make it like some of the other guys, but Mr. Scott spent time with me. And during the summers, I was so enamored of Mr. Scott that we went to elementary schools during the summer. They had summer school to teach the young kids music. And that was a feeder system into the high school. Because if you remember, Ballard Hudson was a segregated school. We had no mixed people in our school. So we had to get our musicians from the segregated elementary schools. Now, if anybody in here is past 60 years of age, you would remember Ballard Hudson Senior High School Band. Our band was so great, I said so great, that when we marched on Cherry Street, they stopped us from marching before Santa Claus because all the people would stop and watch us dance, watch us play, and they would follow the band up and down the street, and the rest of the parade lost people watching them. Mr. Scott was an educated man. Mr. Scott believed in education. And Mr. Scott studied, and he was also a veteran. Mr. Scott was a wonderful man. I can't explain it any deeper than that Mr. Scott deserves that recognition. Mr. Scott will someday, I assure you, will be in the Hall of Fame because just now we're getting around to it. If you read the Macon magazine, you'll read some other things about him, his life and his legacy. Mr. Scott has done a wonderful job in this city, and this city owes him, I think. That's my opinion, as some people like to say. That's my opinion. This city owes Mr. Scott. And I think he deserves it. And Mr. Scott was, as Ms. Lucas said, a member of the church around the corner, Stewart Chapel, all of his life, from childhood until death. Mr. Scott was a member at that church. Mr. Scott was a great musician. He could play any instrument. And I heard somebody mention Mr. Mills. Well, Mr. Mills came along behind Mr. Scott. And Mr. Mills was taught by Mr. Scott at Ballard Hudson High School. I can't explain everything right now, but I do want to say this. Macon owes Mr. Scott this honor. And it's never too hard to change a street. If we can change Pioneer to Pierce and Vineville to Forsyth, we can do this for Mr. Scott because no one knows who those people are. We got to go and research. But if you go in that neighborhood or any black neighborhood in Macon where the people know about Ballard Hudson, then you'll know that these people would love to see this happen. We owe Mr. Scott this. And I understand those who have a problem with it. And, you know, there's no problem with me about it. I just think that we owe Mr. Scott this.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Commissioner Tillman?
Yes, thank you. We all heard the phrase, history repeats itself. And today, we're talking about history that's going to repeat itself. And maybe 100 years from now, again, history will repeat itself, that Mr. Scott, Mr. Anthony, and so many others would not be as relevant 100 years from now, 50 years from now, as they were back then. Talking about Mr. Anthony more than 200 years ago. Sometimes we make things so difficult that's really minor. And it's all because of sometimes wordings. And when you first go to college, they teach you about wordings and understanding progressive writing, thinking, and all of that. And so sometimes we get offended when we hear the word black, segregation. And we look for reasons to sometimes disagree. We look for reasons to agree. I'm the only commissioner that's standing here today that Ballard Hudson Tigers, and I was named after that school. I know Greg Turner personally. He and my mom dated for years. Most folks look at him, look at me sometimes and think that's my father. Turner brought this to me over a year and a half ago on the previous administration, and we tried to go through this process, but it was a tedious process. It's not difficult. Changing the name on a street, it's not difficult. The people that live there, it's not enough to even notice. We can walk it in an hour and let everybody know that you have a new street name. So sometimes, like I said, we make stuff more difficult. The Ballard Hudson Tigers will forever live because that's my name. I'm Tiger. That's what I was named in honor of. My Aunt Linda Smith, my mother, Ronald Smith, Isaac G. Lightfoot, so many folks, Greg Turner, that attended the school. And sometimes the people just want to see something different. Just like we fight blight every day. People want to see something different. What are you going to do different? It looks the same. Well, you can change it. History repeats itself. 50 years from now, 100 years from now, there'll be another great source that have done so many great things that somebody will say, let's name it in honor of this person. And there'll be nobody around to show up to petition, as we did twice, to say, do you have a disagreement? Nobody showed up. And that's the work that we ask those folks in the community to do. We make it difficult sometimes because we want to put the pressure on them to say, go out, do the research, make it hard for yourself. You know, the commission will fight for you, but you got to go and do the work and walk the streets. This is a process that's been going on for years, but it's here today, and it's a simple process. There's nothing wrong. We can look for reasons, and, you know, whether it's the sponsor, whether it's the wording, we just find and look for reasons. And we can pretend that we're not doing that. I really thought that we did adopt something, Commissioner Jones and I saw we kind of patronized it after a street that was named in honor of Steve Harvey, a radio personality, comedian, entrepreneur, philanthropist, that I think Commissioner Jones and I both saw on television, how they honored him and putting the street on there. Yeah, that would be a better way to do it, and it's an easier way when you don't want to support something. You know, you go the easy route. But I think, you know, there's nothing wrong with changing streets, especially if it's a small portion like this, and the people that live in the community and service the community don't have an issue with it. Why should we? People just come in before us because we're the government body that has to say, okay, it's correct, you can do it, and you go on about your business. And that's all we're here to say. You did the work, you did the research. Madam Attorney, you helped. Mr. Turner, you helped. Mr. Watkins, you looked into it. Al, you originally carried the torch. And so we just want permission to just change this. And that's all you're asking for. It's nothing strenuous to do. But sometimes we make it difficult. Somebody once said, I remember Charles Richardson once said, when he's the editor for the Telegraph, he says, if somebody just gave the commission $10 million, they argue and fuss about that. If they just gave it to them. The government gave us over $77 million. And he's right. We found a way to argue and fuss about that too. We found a way to argue and fuss about things that's petty. And this is really a petty but serious matter to some folks that live in that community. My name will forever be etched in stone as Ballard Hudson Tigers, because that's my name. That's my aunt's school. That's my mom's school. So I'm not commenting because of those things. I'm saying that this is a simple process. And if we forget about that old history, because history will repeat itself, and just change the name and just move on to the next project, we really have, in the mind of the county manager, we have bigger and better things to move on to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tillman. Commissioner Watkins, you want to close us out, sir, or we got some more comments?
Everything Tillman said was great. I yield.
Okay. Commissioner, Mayor Pro Tem Clark?
Yeah, I'd listen. I figured we would have a longer conversation and wanted to listen. I really appreciate you being here. I tend to think that we are a living, breathing community, and that this is one of the more vibrant communities that we have in Macon, and it is because of Ballard Hudson. And as a student of history, this is one of the honoring folks who have shepherded this community is something that I take a great deal of pride in. And I take a great deal of pride in being part of this generation that made that decision in the same way that generations before made the decision to honor and name things. I don't particularly believe that we're bending rules on this. This exception was written into the code on purpose, and it was written into the code. I would have to believe, I don't know when it was written, and I don't know the minds and the hearts of the people that wrote it, but I would imagine it is for insurmountable hurdles that you faced in trying to meet the petition requirements. That's something I deeply appreciate, and for that and for the reasons I said earlier about being a living and breathing community, and this is your community, and I'm honored to represent the portion of the road you're working to rename, and so for all those reasons, I'm in support of this, and I'm really grateful that y'all put your shoulder into it, and to honor somebody that changed your life and changed the face of this community, and I hope that considering that I represent the area, I hope that my colleagues will take that into consideration, I'm in support of this, and I don't think we need to, given the work that's done by the community, I don't believe we should amend this resolution today to change their wishes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Commissioner Howell?
Can I get the map brought back up? Ours is black and white, so it's kind of hard to read. And can we highlight exactly where we're talking about changing? Pine on the back. Is it from Pine on Avenue back toward town?
It is from Pionono Avenue over to the intersection of Anthony Road with Felton Avenue. So it's about half of the length, generally, of the full Anthony Road.
Out of curiosity, when we petitioned, I'm assuming that we sent letters to everybody in that area. I wonder how that would change if we eliminated from Lincoln Street to Pionona, because it looks like that's where the majority of the properties are. I mean, the individual. If we took that out of the equation and we changed the name of it to Lincoln Street, which is the school is at Lincoln Street. And sir, as your comment said, sometimes we date ourselves by who we know. So Johnny Mills happened to be my generation, so thank you, sir. I'm just wondering if that would change the petition, if it would change the yays versus the nays and the respondents from the people that live in that area.
I don't have that information. I did not map the petitioners that Mr. Turner was able to reach. I can get you that.
I'm thinking I yield.
Okay. Commissioner Wilder.
I know we spent a lot of time on this, and I do agree. A lot of times it does give more recognition with the big sign, but I feel like due to the due diligence from this gentleman and several of the other neighbors that own out that way, I'm going to go with this.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lucas.
Okay, my question was similar to, I wanted to see the map and to see where the section would be. Could y'all put that? Okay. So the area that would be changed is the area from Pionona Avenue all the way up past Ingram Pie Elementary School to where the Buck Melton Center is. So the next block would be Anthony Road going toward Mercer or Columbus Road. That would be Anthony Road. And then there's another section, I'm trying to picture another section of Anthony Road from L to part of it from Pionona Avenue to L, and then by Henderson Stadium from there up to Columbus would still be Anthony Road.
Yes, Commissioner.
And then, okay. Pardon? Okay, it just happens that I think it was my ordinance that allowed us to make the exception. I think it was mine, wasn't it? And we put in the exception to it, so it's there for a reason. I still think that we don't need to change the name on another section of that road. I think we need to designate it in honor, because I'm going to tell you, frankly, I've been contacted by some folks who look at the former principal, R.J. Martin, and they want some recognition for him. I think Dr. Martin was there for how many years was he? A long, long time. And then I've heard some people who wanted it as Ballard Hudson Way in that area. So I'm just...
Ms. Lucas, Dr. Martin was there from the very inception of the school. Mr. Scott came along 6 years later. Now, those people want to have it named after Mr. Martin. They had the opportunity to join in, and we do this. I even approached Commissioner Watkins about that. No one showed up. Each time we had a meeting, only the people who was for Mr. Scott showed up. Those others who have approached you, they haven't done any of the legwork. They refused to come out. We posted it on Facebook, even in the Friends of Ballard Hudson Senior and Junior High School. None of those people showed up. And then as far as the map, the street starts at Felton Avenue, at the Buck Melton Center, and it runs all the way to Pinona Avenue. There are only 6 houses on that street and only 2 homeowners. The others are renters, and I got the information from the people who own those homes. So they all approved it. And so, including the people who own homes there. Now, the property that sits across from Ingram Pie, that man lives in California. He approved it. And those people who we could not reach, we sent letters to. We sent letters, and we got no response from them, even though we knew where their addresses were. So the people who want to change it to Martin, they had an opportunity to be here just like I am today, and they refused. And if that's what they wanted when they approached you, then you should have told them.
No, that's not what they want. They expressed to me that should be
I understand what you're saying. They expressed to you they should have been here.
I'm not going to get into that part, but I appreciate that information that they did start out with the group. Okay, Ms. Mayor, it looks like that from what I'm hearing, that the majority of the commission wants to make the exception, and so I'm good with that. And thank you, Mr. Turner, for that additional information, because I did not know.
Thank you, Commissioner Lucas. I think we've had enough discussion on this, and hopefully we can move forward with a vote. Commissioner Tillman, I have your light on, but you feel comfortable? Go ahead and vote, sir. You like to be recognized? Okay. Mr. Tillman.
What I would like to do, how much additional, is this the last thing on the agenda?
Yes, sir.
Well, what I wanted to do, and just sum up and just say thank you to everybody that's had a comment, and just to go back that there's still time for others that may want to show up. You know, Hartsville, Jackson, Maynard, Airport, you know, there's still time. And I don't think it's fair for us to, you know, mention other names that we as commissioners personally think that should be honored, and we don't have that resolution before us. Let's, you know, just be fair to this particular resolution. And it's just amazing, some of this. And sometimes, you know, those small things that we just think are small become a big issue to some. And it's glad for you to be here to share some information with us because we didn't know everything, and we don't know how much work you put into this. I know it's been a couple of years. One of the first resolutions I ever put forth was naming Elm Street Jacob Parker Way. That was the first resolution I did as a commissioner, and so we appreciate that. Mr. Mayor, I did want to ask the attorney, with the waiver that I think Commissioner Lucas originally had put in, and yeah, well anyway, I yield. Just call for the question.
Okay. You got Mr. Bronson back now, so we can take a vote. Mr. Bronson, I know you had to do something military, so I appreciate that, sir. We have a call for a question. We have a second for that. Got a motion and a second. All those in favor of calling the question, please say aye. Opposed, nay. Got one nay. So the question has been called. So at this time, we'd entertain a motion to approve. I don't think we have a motion and a second yet on this particular resolution. We got a motion to approve. Commissioner Watkins, would you like to make that recommendation, sir? Got a motion by Commissioner Watkins. We have a second. Second by Al Tiger Tillman. Any discussion, any further discussion? I'm sorry, we got to call the question, my bad. All those in favor of the motion, roll call vote request? Okay, we'll start with Commissioner Tillman over here. Mr. Tillman, how do you vote? Yes. Mr. Watkins, how do you vote? Mr. Howell, how do you vote? Commissioner Wilder, how do you vote? Pro Tem Clark, how do you vote? Yes. Mr. Jones, how do you vote? No. Mr. Lucas, how do you vote? Mr. Bronson, how do you vote? Yes. Mr. Nguyen, how do you vote? That motion carries 6-2 and 1 abstention. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your time today. We have had a long meeting. I know we have somewhere we need to be in just a moment. It's amazing that how we spend time on certain issues. We spent millions of dollars without any discussion, and we had a very long discussion on this particular item, so I appreciate everybody's forethought, and I appreciate the manner that you carry yourself and how cordial you are with each other, and the very heated discussion at times. So at this time, there's no further business that brings us here before today. Commissioner Lucas, you don't need to say anything, do you? I see your eyes. Go ahead.
Well, the time has passed. I'll say it to the person.
Okay, thank you. I was afraid you were going to make a comment. So if no further business brings us here today, this meeting is hereby adjourned.